Hello everybody and welcome to Metal Heart Endurance. I am Coach Cole with the first video in our Learn to Run series. This video is made to work in tandem with the plan that your coach will have given you. If you don't have a plan yet, that's totally fine. These videos are still going to have a lot of really great information for you. And if you have questions, you can always shoot a comment down below or visit metalheartendurance.com. But with that said, let's get started by looking at our goals for the first 3 months. Now, I get messages all the time by folks who are looking to get into running. They want to run a 5K, or their partner and them are going to sign up for a marathon. They want to know how they're going to get started. And I love the enthusiasm. My big but is that I don't love distance goals as kind of a primary focus when somebody is first getting started in running. At least not if you want running to become something that you're going to do for the long run. These three goals on screen are really what I prefer to start with, and I think that it makes better athletes both in the short and in the long term. So an important thing to know is that running is considered a high impact sport. It's in fact just jumping from one foot to the next. And every time you land, there's about 2.5 times your body weight worth of force that your body experiences. You distribute that amongst your joints and your muscles and tendons and ligaments, and your body has to be strong enough to handle that. And every time you go for a run, even just a half-hour run, you might take, say, 5,000 steps. And if 5,000 repetitions of 2.5 times your body weight sounds like a lot, it's because it is. And this is the reason why runners tend to just have so many overuse injuries. So my number one goal for runners when they first start is to reduce their risk of injury, and we do this by trying to make your stride more efficient. If we can make even small gains in efficiency early on so that you can interact with the ground better, you can distribute the force in a more ideal way throughout your entire system, then we can drastically reduce your risk of injury. And a bonus to that is a more efficient stride also helps you run faster, and it helps you run with less effort. And now my second goal for new runners is to have them develop a sustainable running routine. That there are so many additional things aside from just getting out to run that you have to get good at in order to have a successful time running and to enjoy it. You have to figure out how and when to go for a run, maybe some recovery methods which are going to help you in between your efforts, to figure out what nutrition strategy we're going to do, and maybe how to get more sleep so that, again, we can recover and actually get stronger from our workouts. And my third goal is to develop aerobic fitness. I think this is what most people think of when they think, I'm going to take up running to start. And I like to use the CSEP guidelines, which is 150 minutes or 2.5 hours of moderate to vigorous activity each week. And we're going to focus on running, and we want that running to be pain-free. So 2.5 hours of pain-free running a week. I like to see that spread over 4 or 5 days, so half an hour to 40-minute runs. That's generally the goal. And these are the guidelines that we want to see just for any adult, so anybody 18 to 65, in order to maintain aerobic health. So it makes for a fantastic baseline for us. And this last one is not a goal so much as a necessity for me, is that I need you to enjoy running. Now, I know a lot of people hate running, and I think it's just because we haven't given it a chance, or at least haven't given it a chance in the proper way. Because no one likes feeling awkward and out of breath and like they can't do something. So I ask anybody who comes to work with me that they give me 3 months, because that's enough time for you to learn the skill of the motion of running. And it's enough time also for your body to adapt to the stress so that your body can tolerate it and it just won't feel so hard. But if after 3 months you still hate running, then that's totally okay. It just means we should find a different method of exercise for you. Running doesn't have to be for everybody. I understand that. Although, as somebody who runs really to maintain my mental health, I find the structure of, having to go to bed on time and having to make good quality meals and regularly getting out and actually exercising, that it really helps hold my life together. And that's just benefits I want everyone to be able to see, which is, well, why I do what I do, right? Okay, so let's consider the factors that we're going to put together now in order to make a training plan for you. And as you can see, that there are a lot of them. And that's why having a coach or an experienced friend is a really good thing to do. But it's still important for you to understand some of these concepts so that when you're working with a coach that you can communicate properly. A simple way to look at all aerobic training, so whether it's running or on a bike or getting out for a swim, is that it's 2 balancing acts. The first 2 things we're going to balance are intensity and volume. So essentially time at effort. So The intensity is a measure of how hard you feel something is. Now, in running, we can measure this by pace or how fast you're going. We can put a heart rate monitor on you and get an indirect measure of what we'd call VO2. We could see how kind of hard physiologically your heart and lungs are having to work. Or we can just use a simple scale of 1 to 10 and get your perception of the effort. And the research shows that your perception of how hard something is actually really closely correlated with VO2 as well. So all three of these can be good measures. We just want to get you familiar with at least one of them so that you can monitor how hard you're going. And the next thing we want to consider is volume. So often we'll use time or distance, and in some cases we'll use vertical displacement as well if you're getting into kind of the ultra or trail running world. But when we take intensity and volume, the product of those is your training load. And this starts to get into really where the coach comes in, because the coach is somebody who's going to calculate training load for you, and they should be working to find the right balance of intensity and volume to gear your training towards your specific goal. So if you want to run a short, fast event, you're going to have more intensity and less volume. If you're going to run a long, slower event, you're generally going to have more volume and less intensity. Now, again, this is getting a little bit technical, but this information is important for you to know so that you can have faith in the training and you can understand why your coach is making decisions. The other balance your coach is going to try to reach is to find a balance between work and recovery. Doing hard work is really important, but it's actually in the times you take not working, the times that we rest and recover, that is actually when we get stronger. So we want to find the right balance. We want to find enough hard work that we get a stimulus. We trigger the body to say, hey, I'm going to get stronger in these specific ways. And then we give enough time for the body actually to recover and allow those changes to happen. So this has to do with frequency, with how many hard workouts we have during the week, how many recovery days we have during the week. Now, this is important for you to know because you have to communicate with the coach. As a coach, I can't tell how hard an effort is for you, nor can I tell if you're getting stronger and feeling stronger over the course of days and weeks, or if you're actually starting to feel beat up and beat down. There's certain ways I can see if you're dropping off in pace, but I really need to rely on you for feedback in this way. So it's important things for you to consider. And the last thing is just type. So we're going to focus primarily on running here, but whatever aerobic activity you do is going to be the one that you are most efficient in. So if we want to get good at running, we need to spend as much time running as we can. But you still use the same heart and lungs and aerobic system to do all aerobic activity, and most aerobic exercises are lower body focused. You can think of running, biking, rowing. What that means is that crossover is a thing, and cross training can be very beneficial. So let's take a look at how we put these factors together to make a training program for you. Now, the key to any well-designed training program is progressive overload. We give your body a new stimulus, we give it enough time to adapt, and then we introduce a new stimulus that's often harder, and then we give it enough time to adapt, we rinse and repeat, and that is how we see progress over time. Now, there's lots of different ways to program that, but we use a reverse linear approach, which sounds very fancy. One of the reasons I really like the reverse linear approach is it recognizes that volume is the biggest contributor to both performance and injury. Now, because it's the biggest contributor to injury, we want to start with a low volume. And we're going to gradually increase over time because it is the biggest contributor to performance. So we want to see volume get up because the more you run, the better at running you're going to get. The other part I like is that it really reflects the experience of somebody who's just getting into running for the first time. Because a traditional linear approach starts with a gradual increase in volume, but it also starts with a low intensity. And my question is, can we expect somebody who is just off the couch or who's never run before to actually run easy? That when you start, all running feels hard because running is hard. If I ask you to run 3 lamp posts or even go out for a couple minutes, you might very quickly get up to an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So is it realistic for me to ask a new runner to run easy? And I would say no. And now to look at this last point, let's take a look at some graphs because graphs are fantastic. So on the left here, we can see a traditional linear approach, which is we would keep intensity quite low and gradually increase in volume over the first 2 months. Maybe this is a base building period. Once we've established this base, we would allow volume to gradually decrease while we starts to run harder workouts, the intensity of the program will start to increase. Now, what this prepares you for at the end is you're going to be prepared to run at a high intensity for a low duration or a low distance. And this really comes from the track and field world. This would prepare you really well for a 1 mile race or for the 800 meter or even a fast 5K. But the folks that I tend to train are in their 20s or 40s or 60s, and they're coming to running for the first time. They don't have that track and field background. So they haven't spent time developing their running form. And because of that, they're not as efficient and running feels hard for them. So we still start with a low volume and we're really just going up in volume over time, but we're going to accept that running is hard to start. And what will happen is over time, the more you practice, the easier running is going to feel. And this reverse linear approach, again, it's the direct opposite of what's happening here, and it much more reflects the experience of a new runner. Now this line I have in the middle, that's not on the linear graph over here, this represents what I tend to see in terms of changes in pace for new runners, is that despite the fact that you're putting in less effort on your runs, your pace is actually increasing during the first bit. And then we hit this point right around the end of the first month where we are continuing to increase in volume. And because of that, the volume starts to get to a level where we need to slow down a bit in order to allow for recovery. The point I'm really trying to make here is that this increase in volume is linear, but your progress and how fit you are isn't necessarily always linear. That we're going to have these little times of like setbacks. You might have a period in between where you're like, oh man, my runs aren't getting quite as fast, but that's okay. We can't expect everything to just be up and to the right forever. Okay, so let's go over our 3 goals and how this reverse linear approach is going to get us there. So we're really going to focus, number 1, on developing a sharp, efficient running form. We're going to do that by doing lots of drills, lots of exercises, and short bouts of running with recovery so that you can perform good quality running. While we're working on number 1, we're going to think about our time outside of running so that we can develop a really good exercise routine, but also good recovery practices to help us get the most out of our workouts. And as we get this really good blend of good quality work and good quality recovery, you're going to get stronger, and your perception of the intensity is going to drop, even if maybe pace is increasing. And then as that perception of effort comes down and we learn to actually truly run easy, then we're going to be able to increase the volume and get to the point where we can run this 2.5 hours a week of nice, easy running. Okay, thank you for making it all the way through the end. I have no idea how long this is going to be. I'm not wearing my watch, but I hope you learned something here, and I hope this really frames the next 3 months that we're going to spend together. Again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below or shoot me a message directly at Mettle Heart Endurance on Gmail. If you did get something out of this, you can do all of the YouTube things, so give us a like, subscribe, you can hit the bell so you get a little notification because there's many more videos in this series coming. As always, I hope you had fun. Remember to show up, do your best, and stay punk in everything you do.